Hello, everyone. We are here for an episode with Zodizac. Am I saying your name right?
Yes, that's how I go by Zodizac, not Zodiac the Killer.
Okay. Okay. Well, what if you're slaying it or you're killing something? No, I don't know. Nope.
Son of.
But it's Zodizac, right?
Yes.
Zodizac. So okay. So tell us about your shirt and your necklace here.
Oh yeah, we just mentioned that going over that. So the shirt was originally my uncle's favorite shirt in the 90s. And he passed away and I inherited it and I liked it a lot, not knowing really what it represented back as a teenager. And that one started to fall apart and I found it online. And since then, I've purchased probably 10 copies of it. I have about four left. I've sold them. Very popular. Glows in the dark. It's all 88 constellations front and back.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I was like, I can't believe you still fit in it, but it sounds like you've had several iterations of it.
right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting. So it's got all the constellations on it.
yeah.
Okay. So and then what? Tell us about your necklace.
Yeah, I was just going over that too. This was something that I inherited from my mom who passed away in November and just kind of been wearing it in her honor.
Hmm.
Kind of really goes with the shirt.
Interesting. Well, may your mom see this episode wherever she may be. And okay, so what do you got in your hand here?
Oh, it was just my logo, the sticker.
This is okay. Let's look at Zodizac's name. Zodizac. It's got the sun and the moon in it. That's cool. So, are you an astrologer by trade? Like, is that what you do for a living?
I started out professionally in 2013 on a global webcam similar to this, where I was in front of a computer all day and would work 40 plus hours a week as a quote unquote professional astrologer without ever having any sort of official training from any other astrologer courses or anything like that. I had been studying it on my own since 2003, so about 10 years at that point. Originally, I was introduced to the form that I study now in 1997 when my aunt was going through a divorce. And I read the combinations and I was like, oh, okay, whatever, astrology, and just put the book back on the shelf and didn't even look at it again. I was going through my own separation and found the book again, not realizing I had been introduced 6 years prior and got the bug and wanted to know everything I could. And that was in 2003. So again, fast forwarding back to 2013 is when I went professional and I worked on a website, ornum.com, where I had a global audience and it was many more foreign, non-American people. And they seemed to kind of get it better than a lot of the domestic interactions I had, where there was a lot less explaining. The readings went quicker. And it just seemed like I was like, okay, I need to really focus on this country because this is kind of some of the newer kids on the block when it comes to understanding and understanding these, vibrations that are astrology. So that was 2013. And then when I moved to Portland in 2015, I was really searching for some sort of teacher slash mentor. And the first one that I found was Aztec astrologer teacher from Mexico named Mazatzin. And he came up and he did a workshop and it ended at like 10 and I ended up having a conversation with him until like 1:30 in the morning after it was all closed. And he really had some great insights. Had a recording of it, I lost it somewhere. So he taught me a lot with just that one interaction and that course. And then 9 months later to the day, I ended up finding another mentor, Antor Ali, who had a course that was offered, and it was exactly the same day. It was like January 25th to September 25th is when the next course was. And his was a 6 week course. It was mostly online, but for the first time in his history of doing the courses, he opened it up to have participants come over to his house on Sunday. And so we basically had an astrology conversation every Sunday. And later on, he said to me, looking back, he was questioning when he first met me why I was even there as a student because he saw me as a professional. Because what had happened was that he also is a director, writer, author, producer, and he took me under his wing as a production assistant for some of his paratheatrical performances. We did about 15 shows together in Portland.
Wow.
Yeah, so we went from astrology to the film side, where some of that stuff on YouTube films. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, and he's unfortunately passed in the past few years. I just learned that this year, like last year. That's what.
We should put some of the links to those in this video down below so people can see your work there.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Oh, so you said you so he saw you as a professional. I mean, it seems like you kind of were built to be an astrologer or meant to be an astrologer in some ways. That kind of what it was. He kind of saw you as an astrologer.
Yeah, I mean, my history of the reason that I would really say that I follow astrology so much is that we all kind of, whether we're aware of it or not, we all practice astrology based on what kind of vibes we get with someone. We know at some level who we're compatible with and who we're not, whether we have the deeper understanding of the astrology behind it or not. I was someone who went to a lot of different grade schools and high schools and moved around a lot and seen a single mom who was in and out of different relationships. And I've had my interactions as well, but I've really, from a young age, wanted to know how to do that different or better and what to look for. And so I was looking for that deeper meaning from a childhood and teenage years without knowing it. And so in adulthood, when I went through a separation where I refound astrology and went deeper with it.
So can we know a little bit about your astrology? Like what is your sun, moon, and rising?
So sun is July 18th, the day of conviction, Cancer 3 persuader. The rising is Cancer 2 unconventional, and my moon is in Taurus 2 teacher.
Okay, so where are you getting those words? What is that?
So that's the secret language of relationships that was originally created by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers. And that is the 48 weeks of the zodiac instead of 12 signs. So it's 12 cusps plus 36 weeks. And each one has a name. And then there's the birthday book with 366 days where each day has a name.
Interesting. So, okay, so this is why I want to talk to you partially, but partially just want to get to know you a little bit, but it's like your method of astrology doesn't totally make sense. Maybe like I need a drawing or a picture, but it's like, what is the 40? Tell me more about the 48 separate.
Yeah, so it has the primary focus is the cusp, of which I recall yours being on that, and a lot of people are unclear about if theirs is on the cusp or one day before or after. This really expands it, and the periods are not equal and they overlap. So when you look at degrees, one week will end and the other one has already begun. And I know in a lot of traditional astrology, the cusp is kind of heresy in a lot of ways, where they're like, no, it's black or white. There's no gray. And I see a rainbow between that, and that's what I've been focusing on primarily. So instead of one sign, you're now faced with five, with 3 weeks and a cusp on either end. And so with that, I've been field testing this. I've asked probably thousands of 5,000 people their birthday and remembered it and interacted with this, and I haven't found anything less than the truth. I've only found the truth with this. And then it comes back to the five categories that we all experience in this 3D realm of love, marriage, friendship, family, and work. Now there's subcategories. You could have under family, you could have sibling or brother, sister, cousin, like that. Or work, you could have boss, employee, or coworker. Love could be love affair. There's a lot of different subcategories, but those five categories, there's really no other type of relationship other than like with pets and animals that we may have that would be kind of different than that.
Interesting. So do you do mainly readings on those topics then?
Yes, absolutely. And either insight into the person or compatibility with another individual or even a time frame, past, present, or future.
So what is like I know it sounds like you've gotten out of working astrology as a profession exclusively. You have other things you do, but so you do take readings though.
Yes, and my most recent reading was a very work-based reading where they wanted to know about what was really going on, and I found that they were facing a very incompatible work period. And then on the other hand, they were looking at an interview that they really excited about, and this was actually a very good time for them to jump into that job for the work. So they had come out of it incompatible to the compatible for work.
Sure. So what? So okay. So your type of astrology, is there a name for it? Like it's
Personology.
personology.
And so Gary Goldsteiner had graduated from Yale with a degree in psychology. And he was an autodidact and remembered everything in his life, collected baseball cards as a teenager. And by doing that, he inadvertently collected their birth dates. And so he took that knowledge that he had and studied over 20,000 biographies and fused psychology with numerology and astrology to create personology.
Interesting. Personology. That's an astrology I've never heard of before. So Goldschneider?
Yes.
Goldschneider. And so, like, does he have a big following, or what is this a more like a small esoteric sect of astrology, or how big would you say it is?
It's global and it's big. He sold millions upon millions of books. I don't know how many other astrologers have adopted it to do that and study the cusp and look at these kind of readings. It's created a lot of people who are able to utilize these books and not need anyone else to do their own readings. I think a lot of people focus on sun, moon, and rising. And in 2006, he released his Ephemeris where it was the planets all the way out to Pluto and back, which really broadened it, where it wasn't just your sun sign and your day, your sun, moon, and rising.
So now, are you a transit watcher?
Yeah, I'm a transit watcher. One of the things Antra really taught me was really more about when you have a question or something comes up, then to look, but not to look every day once you have some basic understandings. Where it wasn't, so I don't look daily
Mm,
unless something comes up or there's a question from somebody.
interesting. I'm so horrified by that. Like when people say that, I'm just like, oh, that yeah, I only check the time like once every 5 days or something. Like to me, it's like checking the time because the chart is a clock, and
Absolutely.
so I'm always like, what time is it right now? What time is it? Like I'm like an all day. Well, I kind of check it in the morning and then get the lay of the land for the day and calculate it on my 100 charts that I care about, and then I go about my day or whatever. But um okay, so tell me the anatomy of a reading. So someone approaches you and with your system and they ask you a question. How do you go about prepping the chart?
Well, again, based on the question of the five categories: love, marriage, friendship, family, and work. I would look at now. One of the things that this system doesn't necessarily identify the rising, so that's something I would have to decipher based on the degrees. And again, there's an overlap, so there's times where you really have to intuit. Is it this degree or this degree? Because the same degree could be one sign or the other because of that overlap. So again, it's really on, are they talking about insight for themselves, a question they have with like transits or what, compatibility they have with the universe and nature, what's going on, or with another person, an individual. So it's really based around the question, but sun, moon, rising, all the way out to Pluto and back. And then I also look sometimes at the Aztec and Mayan astrology to add that into them. So with the Mayan astrology, they go instead of 366 days or 65, they go on a 9 month period that matches the human gestational time that we're in the womb. So that's 260 days. And then there's a kin number based associated with that.
Interesting. Just so you know, I am looking in your eyes, but I'm looking at them on the screen. Like if I look at you like
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
really awkward,
Oh, yeah, I see.
but okay, okay. But I mean, or not looking in your eye, I'm not like gazing in your eyes, but
Right.
it's like I'm totally like listening attentively, even though I'm looking at you here, because it would be weird if I just looked at you like this. Um, okay, so interesting. So then, so you do look at now you look at aspects, it sounds like.
Yeah. And a lot of it's not really traditional in the way that, you know, opposition, conjunction, or trine, or any of these sort of things the way that they would normally. So a lot of it is taking traditional astrology and saying, well, traditional astrology says it's this way, but this isn't necessarily the way it is in this specific case.
Mm. Well, so it's like I feel like if we took the music analogy, there's like traditional classical music, and then this is like jazz fusion astrology or something.
Okay.
I mean, what do you think of it? Like, if
Yeah.
you're gonna classify it as a musical genre, what would you say?
Yeah, well, that's interesting too, because Gary Goldschneider, the creator of this form, was also a pianist, composer, and did that side of the musical side of the, contributing vibrationally that way. And so, yeah, it would be fusion. A lot of his music wasn't very popular. I've listened to it. I've read his autobiography that he sent me personally, and he also has since passed away in the past few years, so he's no longer around. And I don't know if his work will be continued by. He had like 7 children,
Mm.
and I don't know if any of them will carry on his legacy in that manner because the premise that he created went from 1900 to 2025.
Mm.
So yeah, it is really a fusion. It is really an intuitive, but it's as much as it's about the stars in the sky, it's about what's going on this planet interaction every day and everyone that we interact with.
Mm. So, are you a do you look at synastry and
Absolutely, that's what it is. That's what it is. The synastry, the synergy between the two charts, and the third entity itself, the relationship, because there's always that third entity that's there is the relationship itself.
So is that the composite chart or is that the synastry?
The synastry or synergy, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So okay, so let's go through our synastry a little bit. So your sun is, tell me without the word. What degree is your sun?
So it's on the very last degree of Cancer before the Cancer Leo cusp begins.
Okay, so it's like 29 Cancer.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So my Mars is conjunct your sun, just so you know.
Okay.
And your moon's at 3 Taurus?
No, it's after that. Without actually.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll bring that out. So not 3 degrees Taurus, but the second week in mine would be Taurus 2 teacher. So it's
Well, so what's that mean? Taurus 2? Is it the second degree? It's not the second degree.
no, second degree would still be on the cusp.
Okay.
And in normal astrology, traditional astrology, there's usually like around a 3-degree tight orb for any kind of, is it this or that? And the orb isn't always 3 degrees. It's more than that, and it's never less than that, but it can fluctuate.
Mhm. So when you say Taurus 2 teacher, what's the 2 mean?
So the 2 means is Aries, Taurus, cusp of power, Taurus 1 manifestation, and the second week Taurus teacher.
Okay, that's confusing to me. So are you on the Aries Taurus cusp
No.
or are you in the middle of Taurus?
In the middle of Taurus.
Okay, so Aries 2 or Taurus 2 means the second part of Taurus.
Well, again, if we went back to the 5, a cusp at the beginning and end, it's the very middle of the 3 weeks.
Okay. Interesting. I have to look up a picture of Gary Goldsnyder right now. So I mean, because I think if I got a reading from you as a professional astrologer, I'd be a little confused as to what the numbers are referring to and all that kind of stuff. But I bet for people who are new, they're new to astrology or they're just, is this him?
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay. So this is Gary Goldsnyder. This is the founder of this type of astrology. What's his like most famous book called?
The Secret Language. And then originally it was Birth Dates. I think that debuted in 94. Then Relationships. Secret Language of Birth Dates, Secret Language of Relationships, I think was 97. And then the Secret Language of Destiny, which is the South and North Node and your life path based in this.
Interesting. So what are you showing me here?
Oh, I was bringing up my chart so I can.
Okay.
Oops.
How old are you, Zodizac?
I'm old enough to know better and I'm still learning it.
Damn, and he knows better. Can't pull anything past him.
Okay, so
what, like when you go on dates and stuff, do you check the charts?
not typically as much as I did 10 years ago or more. It is interesting to know the birth date, but I don't. There was a time everyone I asked or everyone I met, I would ask their birth date immediately. And nowadays, I just kind of let it naturally bubble up. Sometimes it comes up where I ask, or other times it's just, it's there. So yeah, I brought up my chart. So back to that 19 Taurus or 23 degrees would be my moon.
Well, it's no 19 degrees. It's 19.
20 or 19, yeah, 19 degrees, 14 degrees Leo conjunct my Jupiter.
Oh, you have Mercury conjunct Jupiter at
Yeah.
14 Leo. Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then another 2 things that are really stand out. I have 2 yods in my chart.
Interesting. So how does your system see a yod?
Yod. It
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily identify them. I will look at that myself on my own. A lot of what Gary Goldschneider does, it doesn't go. I mean, it goes with the south and north, but like I said, it doesn't have the rising as part of it, and doesn't really look at a lot of the traditional aspects that will be looked at.
So how does he look at the nodes?
Well, as life path, south node, what we're moving from, and north node, what we're moving towards, and that was the Secret Language of Destiny. That was the 3rd book in the series.
So he is in that way kind of in adjacent to the evolutionary astrologers who look at the north node, south node as like that karmic evolution of where we're going. So he is kind of adjacent to other forms of astrology, at least
Right.
in that fashion.
Yes.
Okay. So how does his system look at, like, if you had your Mercury Jupiter conjunction, does he say anything about that, or it sounds like the aspects he doesn't really use in the same way?
Yeah, no, I mean it's a lot of it I think was set up too, especially with the fourth book, Personality, the Ephemeris, uh, where it's really left open to interpretation on whoever's looking at it and how they want to read it.
Hmm, interesting. Well, so because like I find your Mercury Jupiter conjunction to be quite compelling from regular astrology standpoint.
Right.
Like that would make you very talkative and especially in Leo, like in the performative arts and like very interested in learning and sharing ideas and be a very positive thinker, kind of like a positive manifester kind of thing. So that's me like just riffing on your Mercury Jupiter. But if he just doesn't, some astrologers don't look at certain things, like they don't look at angles, they don't look at aspects, they don't look at, you know there's a lot of, some astrologers don't look at houses. So how does he see houses?
Yeah, that's not part of his system either. And I do that as well. I'll bring in the houses. But yeah, so his system wouldn't have houses. Again, it's a lot more about the period and the nature and the time of year than, and then the way that the rest of the planets then, and the way that we interact on Earth. So, I mean, a lot of this is based obviously on the position of the planets and stuff, but then how do we interact day to day here with each other or within ourselves?
So what's he say about that? I mean, separate from astrology, how does he think we should be interacting here?
Well, there's definitely some advice in there on the Kairos, the right time and place for a certain thing to happen, the advice, relationship advice that's given in there. But I think that overall it is a different way to raise consciousness and give insight that really hasn't been shown because it takes astrology is just a small part of it. It's numerology and psychology is the other two parts of it. So that's really what creates it.
Well, okay, so Zodi brought up Kairos time, and I will expound upon that for anyone listening. So that's a Greek word, and there's different kinds of time. There's Chronos time and there's Kairos time. So Kairos time is like, is it a good time for XYZ? Like, is it time to party, or is it time to be solemn, or is it time to be crabby, or is it time to harvest, or is it time to, so it's like it's the time or season of things that it's. Whereas chronological time is like it's 3 o'clock. It's like quantitative time. Whereas the astrological chart looks at Kairos time, which is the qualitative clock of like what is the quality of time here, or is this a good time for a photo shoot, or is this a good time for a contest, or that's kind of what the astrological clock looks like, and he sounds like he does look at that.
Yeah, and then also so other paths that I've learned along, you've just brought up two key points that I want to mention, and I don't know how this happened in popular astrology culture where when something's considered retrograde, especially Mercury, that the sky is falling and it's terrible. And that's again, this was the right time of why I wanted to schedule this now. Having a Mercury retrograde, this is a great time for me to speak, whereas others may be having some stumbling blocks and stuff like that. So we can't generally blanket say that any retrograde is detrimental or beneficial, depending, unless we knew their specific charts. So there's this like thought that, oh, it's something's retrograde, that it's terrible, I shouldn't speak right now. Well, you should find out if you have Mercury direct, stationary, or retrograde. And then the other part that you were talking about between Pranos and Kairos also brings me back to like the Mayan astrology, where there's 1260 times. So it's like, 12 hours in a day, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. Time is money. What do you do for a living? How much do you make? And then there's also the 1320 or 1328, where we have the 13 moon instead of 12 suns, we have 13 moons on the calendar. We have 28 days in the month. Time is no longer money. Time is now art and creativity. So it's not how much money you're making, it's how are you creatively contributing and what do you do for fun, not necessarily for money. And maybe those coalesce or maybe they're separate. But it seems like a lot of times people do one thing for money that they may not necessarily like, and another thing on their side is their hobby. And that's much more of the two different time zones that I've also discovered with the Mayan and the Aztec, where they have, we're not looking at the clock, it's the moon's out or the sun's out versus, oh, what time is it right now?
Well, okay, so I'll speak to that. Well, so like in ancient Greek astrology, which I've studied a lot, it's like they basically say that if you live according to the timing of your chart, you feel like you're flying in your human form. So, a lot of times people think I should retire someday so I can do what I feel like doing, so I can live in that kind of Kairos time zone, right? And it's like what the the Greeks say is that the reason to learn astrology is that so you can live in your chart now. Like you don't wait until you're retired, you do it now, and then you basically feel like you're flying. And that is that kind of creativity zone of like, when they say when you're in the zone, right? You don't notice time, you're not counting time because you're in the zone. Well, if you live to your transits and you go with your impetus and what you feel like doing, you live in the zone basically, and you're always in flow state. And in that way you avoid disease, you don't get sick. There's a lot of things that happen when you live in flow state.
Yeah, and I've definitely been feeling that. Like I was speaking on off camera earlier, this past week has really much been a flow state of everything how I'd like my life to be month to month and year to year, and really stepping into that. That some of the words that my mom had given me in her last message that actually happened after she had transitioned over is, there's a beauty and perfection in everything. And I started studying again the Hermetic principles and going through a course on that, and just reminded me that, the positive and negative happen as a judgment call, and that there really are both in everything. It's really just a lesson that we're here to learn or even teach, because it's not just the eternal student, it's also the teacher. The teacher becomes a student. Well, what about when the student becomes a teacher as well?
Hmm.
So it can go both ways, because we hear so much about being, what lesson were you here to learn? Well, what lesson maybe were you here to teach?
Oh, interesting. That's a really cool flip on the constant, like you're supposed to constantly be a spiritual noob. And it's like, what I actually, I'm 47 and I learned something. That's so interesting. You're making me think of this Greek word melatao, which was when you train your body for that which it was made. So they say if that happens, you will be busy and zealous, and so like if your chart's made to be a musician, a lot of people say like music's not practical or it doesn't make you enough money, but they would say that if you're made to be a musician and then you train your body to be a musician, you'll be very busy, and in that way you will be kind of happy. And that is kind of perfection, right? Of like, the perfect life is the life that is like led for what it was here to do. How does Goldschneider look at life purpose?
I think really with the Destiny book was really where that went from insight onto the birth date, then relationship insight into compatibility with another, and then destiny being your life purpose of, what you've come from, moving away from, and moving towards.
Well, that makes me think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is like the triangle that we look at in development theory, right? And they say like the first thing we need in order to develop is food, shelter, water. And then we need relationships, and then we get to self-actualization on the top. A lot of people think you end on relationship, find your partner and then you can relax. Well, what development theorists would say is actually you find your partner and now you grow your tree of life, like whatever that is. So it sounds like Gary Goldsteiner did look at all those facets of development relationship. Do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then fuse that with the numerology of not just the astrology, but numerology and the way that those numbers interact. So not just the way that we think of the math with astrology, but the way that numerology interacts with itself, and the different numbers like all the way out to nine, because there's really only 0 through 9. 10 is just the reset. We're taught 1 through 10, but it's really 0 through 9. And
Right.
it starts back over.
So how does he weave in numerology with astrology? What does that look like?
Well, again, the tarot side of it wouldn't be the full deck. It would just be based on the 31 days. So your day would be the card of the arcana. So
Are there 31 major arcana?
no, there's more than that, but this would stop there because it would just be by the day of the month.
Okay, so the numerology for him is really tarot.
Well, that's also part of it. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Now, did he look at the midheaven and the IC?
No,
And he doesn't look at the ascendant or the descendant?
no, but I do. And that's again, I don't just use this system either. I
Oh,
use the Aztec and Mayan that I've been taught, and Astrological that I was taught from Andrea Ali, and my own experience and intuiting.
I see. So you're like a aggregate of a few people, and he's just one.
Well, and not just that, I think one of the books that I'll create will be Rich Aunt, Poor Aunt, because I was raised by a very religious and college, educated one who was better off, well off, who introduced me to the secret language relationships. And then I had a witch aunt who kind of always struggled, but I remember her being on the phone with psychics where she would pay like $10 an hour to talk to them from several states over and raise me around crystals. And a lot of the alternative methods were, to me, mainstream of what I thought would be what's normal. And I've come to find out later that it wasn't normal, that a lot of it was considered alternative for people. But she really put a foundation in things in back in the day, my childhood, that really didn't blossom until later.
Hmm, interesting. So you kind of have this, like, you take things from different systems. And now, which house system do you use?
Well, with that also, I mean, I have also looked at Vedic, which, it goes the opposite direction. It's square. They have three imaginary moons. So I do add in also Ophiuchus Serpentarius. Uh,
You add in Ophiuchus?
I just add it to the side. Yeah, it's actually like
Oh my God, let's have the horse go
right
over
there.
Ophiuchus.
Yeah, it's right there. Serpentarius Ophiuchus. I added it off to the side to let people have the insight to know that if we were to look at it unequal and disrupt it, I mean, the sun doesn't actually hit uh Libra, it goes south of it, but then it does pass over Scorpio, Ophiuchus, and Sagittarius. It actually shines on them. So, that would make that Virgo would be like 45 days. Libra would be shorter. Scorpio would be like a week. And then we'd add in Ophiuchus, which is generally the 29th of November to the 17th of December.
Wow.
So,
It's so interesting. Your system is like your systems are a little bit adjacent to traditional astrology. So I'm really curious about how you fit in with astrologers. Like, do you like talking to other astrologers, or do you always feel like you're kind of on the outside?
well, I really do like talking to other astrologers. I am here again to learn and teach is both the same, like I can learn something or teach something that's the same to me. I'd like to just share knowledge and gain knowledge at the same time, however that works. So yeah, I don't have any issue or problem talking to other astrologers. I remember a psychic fair I did once back in 2015, and there was someone who had been astrologer for many decades, and they were quite confused about my systems, and they really asked me, what was my ultimate goal? And my ultimate goal is to raise consciousness. That's it. If we can just raise consciousness, that's job well done. And also that I found that I'm not really here with the answers to questions, but if I can get people considering questions they had never considered before, then my job is done.
Interesting. I love that the consciousness worker side of things. I mean, I grew up with a brother who is a consciousness worker. Like our moons are opposed, both square Neptune, and like basically it's just I was always sitting across the table from this like guru. He's not a guru, but like he could be. You know what I mean? He's done like 750,000 of the same mantra, and
Okay.
he's like a constant. So it's like I have forever been challenged to look at the consciousness side of astrology, and I think I love what you're saying. Do you feel like astrology raises people's vibration, as they say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we all ultimately still have a version of, the free will, and these are all just influences. So it's really like, what do you do with this knowledge after you have it? And what choices can you keep the same or make different based on this knowledge? Back to the guru, they spell that Guru, Guru.
Uh,
Everyone's their own guru. They step into
Interesting.
it. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I do think I in some ways I don't fight with the yogis, but I kind of do because a lot of them want us to constantly be in the like high consciousness state of just like this Zen Buddhist state. And as an astrologer, I feel like the impetus of the planets, whether it be Mars or Pluto or whatever, like pushes us to kind of act out is if we look at it, we can be enlightened and act out like that. That's
Right. I mean, the entire universe is constantly contracting and expanding, right? Wouldn't that mean that we have to be in a flow state that means that we're going in and out like the universe as well, to where consciousness can, two steps forward, one step back, or two steps back, one step forward kind of thing, where there's times where we're lower consciousness, but like a rubber band, we snap back and we gain back into the higher state that overall we can take steps down as long as we're overall leveling up is the raising of the consciousness. We're never going to be at a flow state where it's just even. The flow state is peaks and valleys and up and down.
interesting. It's almost like we have a consciousness baseline or like a
Yeah,
enlightenment baseline, and we go up and
right.
out through planetary frequencies, and then but if you can kind of come back to that.
Right. So the raising consciousness isn't necessarily about the good or bad or if you're feeling happy or sad, but just the baseline leveling up. Because like my mom said, there'll be days like this sometimes, right? And so as long as that baseline is raising, then you're gonna have those days. Then you just keep leveling up.
Interesting. Have you heard of flywheeling?
Flywheeling. No, I don't think I have.
So, people are always like, I was on a downward spiral. Well, the flywheel is an upward spiral. And so, I was like, we try to think of the transits around here as like we're on an upward spiral. It's like every transit we're getting better. And, um, you know, but yeah, so let me ask you, I mean, I'm just getting to know you here. This is really fun.
Yeah.
We are opening up energetically. Look at this. So Zoe, how do you deal with like Mars transits and things like if there's like conflict states, like what is your, what you've learned in your life do with that?
I don't really know how to answer that question. Because again, with the transits, the way that they're foretold in traditional astrology versus the way it would be different for everyone. And that's why I came back to, like the retrograde versus direct. And so it's really like different transits are affecting people based on their charts. So there's a general like, watch out for this because this is happening. But then without that knowledge of knowing how compatible or incompatible we are with our own Mars in that transit and the way that, again, so a lot of it doesn't necessarily, they look at it and they're like, oh, well, this could be good or bad, where this specifically says, this is a hard time for work right now, or this is a hard time for love. So I would chart it out and look at what the compatibility would be again, love, marriage, friendship, family, and work with those transits based on that person's chart, not just generally as the sky is falling, this thing's direct or transiting or retrograde.
Interesting. So, like, what is this time period good for in reference to kind of what their purpose and path and how they interact with the planets? Like, if they have a high Mars chart, then that's going to be a different prescription, or
Right,
than it.
individually instead of a lot of the, I don't know, and again, a lot of it's just put out as kind of blanket statements where people, where someone just reads their sun sign in an astrology horoscope in the paper somewhere and they think that's everything. Well, if you knew your whole chart, then you could read all of those signs and maybe get a better insight that way. And another thing, like we were just talking about, paranoia, but then also the opposite of that is pronoia, where the universe is conspiring to help you and has your best interests at heart.
Man, as a Sapio person, like I'm very enjoying
Yeah.
Zodizac. Okay,
Well,
so
yeah. I'm
Pronoia.
Sapio as well. Bodies mean nothing unless you got my brain. That's all you
Oh my God,
got.
we're basically intellectual porn stars right now.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so paranoia, it comes from Greek. Noia is nous, it's like the mind, it's like your mind state. And para is like aside from. So like if you're paranoid, it's like your mind's going aside from kind of what's important, or it's not. But pronoia, pro means before. So it's like your mind knows something before. It's like foreknowledge is kind of what paranoia is. So I love that you're throwing all these Greek bombs, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Like I think pronoia is better than paranoia because paranoia is aside the point, really.
Yeah. And just to know that there's another one that we know we have paranoia at times, but then what is it the other time? That's just the normal state of being. No, that's paranoia when you're actually in the flow state and things are aligning, working out the way that you would like them to.
Interesting. So you must be like a constantly like life is magical person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, life is pretty magical. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so are you watching your intuition or the signs all the time? Is that kind of how you roll?
Well, yeah, intuition and knowing, yeah, and I've had some help with that. I mean, one of the supplements I've recently just delved deeper into, I've been taking on and off for about 8 years with a liquid form, and now I found a powder form of actually 24 karat gold that has really been, yeah, this, and the Egyptians took it back in the day, and it's really, that's why they displayed the gold because they had excess gold to show that they had wealth that they didn't need to melt that down into a substance that was a supplement. Yeah, that's really helpful.
Interesting. Just sitting next to you and talking to you, what I'm noticing is one of your strengths is philosophical awareness and like manifestation theory. So I have to ask you, like, how much are you into manifestation theory?
Well, I think that we all do it all the time, just like astrology. It's just where are we aware of it, and are we aware that we are able to alter that and change that? The thing of like there's definitely things that happen that we didn't manifest that do just happen. And then there's other things that we call in our life unconsciously. And then once we make the unconscious conscious through anything like effective communication is basically hypnosis. So once we make the unconscious conscious, we have the ability to change those things that we're drawn in our life from what we don't want to what we do want.
Oh, interesting. So, like, well, yeah, some manifestors say that what is verbalized is kind of what happens. Other people say it's like what's visioned is happened. But I think verbalization starts with a vision, right? Like you and I, in some ways, I'm opening up my consciousness for this hour to let us like carve out a vision together. Basically,
Okay.
we had really no idea what today's
Right. Well, there's also, yeah, this, so it's our words, it's our brain, and it's our heart emotions with. There was a really interesting book I read in 2003 called The Biology of Transcendence. And in that, they were talking about how there's four chambers of the brain, and the fifth is the heart. And so we have our intellect in our brain, but we have our intelligence in our heart. And another thing that this correlates with astrology and the Saturn return in this book, they scientifically had shown, which is not documented and shown many other places, but they did have documentation for this, that your brain goes through its final growth right around 28, 29 with your Saturn return. And I found that very insightful and helpful since knowing that 18, 21, 25 are still people who are not fully developed in their brain and their growth. I mean, we consider them adults, sure. But to me, 28, 29 is where you're finally actually stepping in to fully developed adulthood with your brain. And so having that and your words and your heart tied in with the emotions and your intelligence there, intellect here, words here, all three of those create the path. Again, around 28, 29, 30, we're able to create and bring in those things easier than at younger ages.
Interesting. So, like, once we get past our Saturn return, we become better manifestors than when we were young. That's actually like your aura grows stronger, and because I feel like sometimes a manifestation happens. Like, I get a vision, I send it out my chakras, I send a message to the world around me. This is who I am, shock through the chakras, and like I think even, but okay, the heart has a brain. Have you heard about this?
That's what I was saying. That was the thing I was just saying.
Oh,
Yeah, it's the fifth chamber of the four chambers of the brain.
oh my God. Well, yeah, there's pictures of the heart brain and like so a lot of what okay, this is a weird aside, but okay, a friend and I we talk about the heart brain a lot because of dating and breaking up. Okay. So people are always like afraid to get attached and they're like this and that and they're like they always tell me I should have like this Buddhist level of unattachment. Like but like I'm getting attached to you in this one episode. Like my heart's just stupid, right? But the thing is when you get attached psychically through the heart it takes 40 days for the heart brain to break and heal. This is what pictures show, right? So it's like I always, tell people it's like, okay, I'm choosing to get attached to you psychically and all these things. And if you break my heart, I'm gonna give it 40 days and I'm gonna move forward, right? But I find this strength in knowing that my brain is in my heart, right? And it's like and it will break literally if something happens and that but then there's this like repair process so yeah the pictures of the heart brain are like crazy it's like huge the heart brain.
Yeah, and then also our gut is another part of that with the signals we get the gut feelings and so that's basically like the third brain.
Oh, interesting. There's like, well, and okay, like if you look at there's a book over there, Esoteric Anatomy. I guess I can't see it right now, but it's like a book about the anatomy of the aura, and it actually shows that the brain pulses through the whole body. Like we always
Right.
center the brain right here, but it's actually moving all the way through, and I guess it would travel through the gut, travel through the heart, and that we know that the sun and moon are the eyes, and they go down the Eden, the Pingala, and it's like you have this soul senses machine, and the brain is kind of all over the place in some ways. Now, are you a physical astrologer at all?
I have and from that I've studied Edgar Casey.
Oh, I
And
love Edgar Cayce.
yeah, and so Edgar Casey had an astrology book that I found in 2003 that was talking about the features and the traits of different signs. So I took that and kind of internalized that. And it kind of comes out where, yeah, I do tell people that, oh, yeah, you do have this trait that's that sign, or I see, oh, you're pretty tall for a Scorpio, or, these kind of traits. Yeah. So
Yeah.
absolutely. But thank you for bringing that up because I don't quote Edgar Casey enough being a big influence on me. But yeah, absolutely. The Sleeping Prophet.
Oh, totally. He was so Piscean. Like, he'll
Yeah.
talk about like psychics. Like, he is the ultimate psychic. And I think, yeah, a lot of his work is about the spine. I don't know if you've seen a lot of that, but it's,
Yeah, the chiropractor. And so, okay, so I'm originally from the Midwest, Iowa, Illinois area, and chiropractic was huge there in Davenport, Iowa, and Palmer was the school that's still there, and they have a lot of plaques that are erected that were kind of, let's say, Casey inspired, but along the same kind of thought that like Palmer had a lot of similarities between Casey and what they were able to do spiritually with adjusting the spine. And where I was going with that is that I actually uh, came across Casey, and it was something along Jesus and the Sleeping Prophet. And yeah, his was between 11th and 18th of March. And since 2020, I've had a black cat that was born on Friday the 13th, Friday, March 13th. And so that's actually Dancers and Dreamers. That's 48 of 48 weeks in this astrology. So it's actually the very last, like the highest, and I don't think that from my own intuition, I don't think that we come in necessarily like if we're in Aries that we're a baby and this is our first incarnation kind of thing. We may have been through that many times and we're just coming back to experience that again. So even though Pisces may be considered the most ascendant or highest or whatever, they may have just been in Aries and now they're going into the Pisces energy field and that kind of thing for reincarnation.
Interesting. Yeah, Casey's work with the spine is so important because like astrologically, like we know that from all the research I've done, it's like we have this like vertebral body in the spine, and then there's nerve roots that go out of that, and then it goes down to these things called the dermatomes, which are these like electromagnetic spots of skin. So it's like what Edgar Casey knew about the spine is so important for astrologers, at least in doing medical astrology. Like if you have carpal tunnel, we might say, Saturn and Gemini might cause that, but we would trace it back to the spinal root. And a lot of that I really learned from Edgar Casey, honestly. It's also really interesting with his work about life path and lessons. Like, do you notice how he's always channeling about people going through lessons? Like, what do you think of his work with do you think souls are here to do lessons, or how does that work?
Well, that's kind of what I was bringing up earlier, is are we here to do lessons or to teach them? Because sometimes it's one or the other. And I don't think we're here to just go through the motions and just live a very boring life. I mean, it's maybe we're here to learn some lessons and teach some, but just to tread water and just to barely stay afloat is not what we're here to do. Life's meant to be lived, and none of us know if we have tomorrow. None of us know if we have the rest of today. So each moment we have to live like it's our last and fully do what we want to do.
That is so interesting because every time I hear that someone died, I kind of bypass grief into, oh shit, I better live my best day. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to not be wholehearted about it and not have the sadness around the death, but it's just like I think it is a big reminder of like, as long as I have chi running through my spine, I will I will do this dance. You know what I mean? So I love what you're saying about like this whole teacher thing because I feel like it feels like astrology, there's always this idea that you should just be like learn, 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 learn. And I get it, like that's the sub part of learn, teach, but like it's also okay to like take on the Dom Alpha form of like, okay, and now I'm gonna teach you this thing I learned, and like really like that what you're saying there. So we have 9 minutes.
Okay.
What do you want? Is there anything like you would hope that people would get to know about you? Or
Well, one other thing I wanted to mention, since we were talking about Edgar Casey and some of the chiropractic that I've been involved with, who uh, people who have helped me on my path with knowing some of like the Edgar Casey stuff and the spirituality work that they did. One of them was Stavros in the Midwest, and another one was out here. The names elude me right now, but they both practice kinesiology. And that to me was great because that is something that's muscle testing where you check for your body if it's right for you or not. And so there was actually some medical advice that that previous chiropractor had given me who said it was against everything that he had been trained, but my body was telling him it was right for me. So I should continue doing the thing at the time that I was doing. And so I just think that that's another little form of along the spine and adjusting and getting spiritually attuned that your higher self, even your lower self, your body is going to know the kinesiology of what is specifically good or not good for you that may go against standard medical advice. This isn't medical advice, by the way, but would go potentially sometimes against that. It's not a medical advice. It's just what your body would say would be helpful or harmful.
That's okay. That's so interesting because I think what that really speaks to is the strength of astrology, which is looking at the individuality of each form and how each like we each have this electrical diagram to our build that is different than every other electrical diagram. And like that's why Hippocrates would say, you know, any doctor who's not an astrologer is but a fool, because you're not looking at the individual, right? And so here's an example. There was this idea in Greece that you should feed your body to its own chart, right? Okay, so and sometimes like I deal with cases where the diet is really weird. Okay, so for example, like I have a lot of Scorpio and I drink like 10 coffees a day. Okay, like to people, most people are horrified by this, but like I feel like the blackness in my aura likes the black drink. It likes the color of coffee. And like I thrive on 10 coffees. Like I have no health problems. I'm like literally thriving in this environment, right? Well, there are extreme diets. Like you'll have people like 8 planets in Taurus and they eat like tan foods like exclusively, and their aura is seeing tan, like the color of Taurus is tan, right? Like
Right.
so I think there is something to be said for like sometimes the astrologer goes over it, like beats conventional wisdom of just being like this chart wants this many of this thing, and like and if it's thriving, that's where you go into harm reduction. Like, is it thriving or is it having a problem?
Right. The balance. Yeah.
You know, so what do you think of that when there's like a really extreme case? Like if your body was like, I want to be stabbed in the arm, like what would you
I
do?
mean, I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, one of the medieval methods was bloodletting for getting over the iron, you know, and that's something that seems torturous, but if that's the only way we can reduce our iron, there's no other detox for an iron overload other than, I mean, maybe again, there are some natural current allopathic remedies and stuff like that, but bloodletting, as barbaric as it may seem, I mean, even like leeches still have standard medical use that all of these seem like they're from medieval times. So again, it's really what's effective for the individual and what works for them rather than what's standard practice or what's accepted by the masses. You know, to me, normal is just 51% of what any mob is doing. 49% is weird, and that's only a 2% difference.
Oh my God, no, I cannot believe we are totally going to be friends. I mean, against your will, even because like I'm a big fan of bloodletting. Okay, in the modern day, they call it phlebotomy. When
Right,
somebody has an iron, they actually just draw their blood,
right,
you know.
right.
But yeah, okay, no, high iron charts like tattoos are a big bloodletting. Like you know, super warrior charts, super martial charts are often covered in tattoos, and people are like, "Oh, that's so impressive." I'm like, "Well, they're iron dumping. It's fine, you know." But like, there's this guy Schlack, this wrestler. He just blood all over. He's like one of these extreme wrestlers who's like always opening up his forehead and bleeding all over. And when I look at his chart, I'm just like, he's a high iron chart. Like for
Right.
him, it's a magic trick, but for the bloodletting aware, we know that
Right, right.
it's regulate.
Yeah, so someone's pain could be my pleasure, my pain could be their pleasure. However that, you know, so that's yin yang.
Well, and like nosebleeds are a form of like natural bloodletting or like hemorrhaging out of the uterus. Like one time I had a client, she and I'm breaking confidentiality here, but she had Mars and Scorpio opposed Saturn and Taurus in a T-square, and she was in her Mars return, and she left my office and went hemorrhaging from like her uterus. But that was Mars and Scorpio bloodletting itself, and I was just like hyper iron, you know. So like I think I love what you're saying because sometimes astrology is so extreme, but we actually are the healers that deal with the cases that no one else can figure out, and
Right.
that is one of the beauties of astrology.
Yeah. And that was something that Edgar Casey was really able to do too, was deal with the cases that they said that you're a lost cause and then 6 months later we're on a different life path.
Oh my God, I'm so glad we had this hour together.
Yeah.
Well, because we keep getting in crowds and we never really get to talk. So now I feel
Right.
like next time I'll just be like, hey, oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so tell us how people can find you.
I'm very elusive and I hide in the woods, so it's not very easy. Sometimes I'm found in Portland. I guess you could find me by email. I do have an Instagram I'm not very active on. Phone number. Yeah, I could give out a phone number. You could reach me by 503-420-7228 or Zodizac at protonmail.com. I guess would be the two ways that I'm most reachable because I do prefer face-to-face conversations, phone secondary and text third, and I don't really like to post online for many things. Although I did spend the past year posting the birthday book every day for a year, so it's all up there with the degrees and the names of the days, stuff like that too.
So how about this? We'll put in the verbiage of the video will put all the places people can find you, including your old YouTube videos, and we'll put your email and your phone number if you want.
Okay. All right, that'll work.
But I think if you get a reading from Zodizac, what you'll find is that you had a high philosophical elevation because that's what just happened to me. All right. Anything else?
No, I think that settles it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for driving out here from the woods. All right. See you later.